So we're going to talk about self-discipline today, which the statement from John is everything worthwhile is uphill. Quote by Harry S. Truman says, "In reading the lives of great men, I have found that the very first victory they won was over themselves. Self-discipline with all of them came first." And there's 7 truths about self-discipline that we're going to walk through today. The first one is self-discipline enables you to go uphill. I want you to think about this in any aspect of life. So if you want a great marriage, it's going to be uphill, and it takes self-discipline to have one. If you want a great career, it's going to take self-discipline, and it's all going to be uphill. If you want to be a great parent, it's going to take a lot of self-discipline, and it's all uphill. If you want a great company, it's a lot of work and a lot of discipline, and it's all uphill. If you want a great friendship with people, it takes a lot of discipline and intentionality, and it's all uphill. If you want a great spiritual life, no difference there. It's a lot of work and it's uphill. If you want to get in shape, it's a lot of work and it's all uphill. So self-discipline is really the catalyst that launches you to be able to go uphill. So that's the first one. The second one is that self-discipline makes the difference between temporary success and sustained success. So self-discipline makes the difference between temporary success and sustained success. You know, they did a study of all of the people who received Nobel Prizes. And what was fascinating is that the majority of them, with the exception of maybe a few, had little to no contribution to anything after they received the Nobel Prize, which is really an interesting fact, that they received this reward and it became just a one-off shot as opposed to something that continued on and on and on and sustained success. We all know Mr. Tom Brady. My wife loves Tom Brady, and he has won 7 Super Bowl championships. So just ponder that for a moment. Most people don't even get one, and he has 7 of them. In 5 of those Super Bowls, he was the MVP. He has the most career wins of anybody, most career touchdown passes of anybody, most career passing yards of anybody, most career passing attempts by anybody. And the list could go on and on. And so when they've done studies of Tom Brady, there's all these different elements of how he's continued to have this ongoing success. The first one is he's very disciplined about controlling his emotions. If you notice Tom, in almost all the interviews he gets up and down, he just does not get sucked in to all of the different elements. And even on the field, he's very disciplined over time to control his emotions. He's very disciplined to be flexible. As he goes down the field and he's in the game, he's constantly having to adjust and be flexible. That has been part of his sustained success. When he turned 40, he actually had to be flexible to change his passes from longer to quicker, shorter passes. So he learned to adapt and be flexible to still be on top of his game, given the realities of his circumstance. He's disciplined about recruiting friends. He was able to go back and get Gronkowski to come back out of retirement to play with him so that he could have success. He was disciplined about his humility. If you notice that he rarely will take credit himself, he always goes back to the team and all the other things that he's accomplished. He's very disciplined from a sustained perspective about his work-life balance. He is very disciplined about when it's with his family. He's with his family. He delights in his kids. If you notice, he brings them out on the field all the time. And so this is part of his success of being an ongoing anomaly, really. He's disciplined about developing leaders. He developed so many leaders that when he left the Patriots, they just had so many people that were able to step up when he was gone. He's disciplined about about sacrificing. He had, $197 million he made one year, and he gave 60 to 100 million of that so that others could be a part of this team. So he was very sacrificial. I suppose if you have 197, you got a few bucks to give away. But he's disciplined about his extreme dedication. I mean, he is long hours, fitness routine with extreme diets, very disciplined about the way that he sleeps. So this is a big distinction because he is so self-disciplined in all these different areas, which has allowed him to have this sustained success. Rory Vaden says the short-term easy leads to the long-term difficult, while the short-term difficult leads to the long-term easy. Self-discipline is developed, it's not given. Think about any development that you've actually seen. We drive around, we're in this business of financing, but you look at a city and someone had to develop it. Someone had to buy a piece of land. Someone had to entitle it, which took discipline. Someone had to then develop it. Then you had to go and design it, and then construct it, and then lease it, and then build it out. You will be continually dealing with problems and all the different people that they're dealing with, commercial brokers, architects, GCs, subs, planners, and the time goes on and on and on. And so self-discipline is something that is developed, it's not given. There was a time when I was a big boy, I was 260 pounds, and that was not muscle, by the way. And I had a discipline of going to McDonald's quite a bit, which didn't help at all. So I could have been the supersize me. But I remember how difficult it was for me to learn how to eat the correct way and learn how to go to the gym. And so there were days where I literally had to develop in my mind a plan when I got out of bed, what I was going to do to discipline myself to go to the gym. I would tell myself I was only going to have to go for 2 minutes. And so I would have all these different tactics that I had to use in order to get me to be disciplined to move and go to the gym. And over time, I learned to develop this self-discipline, which eventually paid off. Self-disciplined people avoid temptation. So if you're trying to be more disciplined about the way you eat, guess what? You have to keep certain food out of the fridge. No ice cream. Self-disciplined people know when to expend their energy. I call that red light and green light. There are just times when we hit the gas and sometimes where we need to hit the brake, and leaders need to know how to be disciplined to do so. Self-disciplined people understand and practice the principle of pay now, play later. There's a quote by Jerry Rice that says, "Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't." I love that quote. Self-discipline makes habit your servant instead of your master. And I want to just take a moment to play this little video that I thought was pretty interesting. It's actually a book that this guy wrote, and he's going to talk a little bit for a few minutes about
Imagine for a
this.
moment that you have a habit that you really want to change. Let's say, for instance, you go up to the cafeteria every afternoon and you eat a chocolate chip cookie. This habit has caused you to gain a little bit of weight. In fact, this habit has caused you to gain exactly 8 pounds, and your wife has started making some pointed comments. And when I say you, what I really mean is me, because this is a habit that I had that I just couldn't kick. To understand why that habit was so powerful and what it would take to change it, I had to learn how habits work. Every habit functions the same way. At first, there's a cue. some type of trigger that makes the behavior unfold automatically. Studies tell us that a cue can be a location, a time of day, a certain emotional state, other people, or just a pattern of behaviors that consistently triggers a certain routine. To figure out the cue for my craving, I spent a few days tracking exactly when the urge to eat a cookie hit. And what I noticed pretty soon was something interesting. The cookie craving always hit about between 3 o'clock and 3:30 in the afternoon. That was my cue. It was a certain time of day. The next part in the habit loop is the routine, the behavior itself. And for me, that was pretty easy to figure out. Every day between 3 and 3:30, I'd get this craving for a cookie. I'd get up out of my chair. I'd walk over to the elevator. I'd take the elevator up to the 14th floor. I'd get out. I'd buy a cookie, and then I would eat it while talking to my colleagues in the cafeteria. The last part of the habit loop is the reward. And in some respects, the reward is the most important part because that's why habits exist, so that we can get the rewards that we want. But figuring out a reward is kind of tricky. To figure out what reward was driving my habit, I did a little bit of an experiment. One day when the cookie urge struck, instead of going up to the cafeteria, I went outside and I took a walk around the block. Then the next day, I went up to the cafeteria, but instead of buying a cookie, I got a candy bar and then ate it at my desk. And then the day after that, I went up to the cafeteria again, but I didn't buy anything. Instead, I just talked to friends for about 10 minutes. You get the idea. What I was trying to do was test different hypotheses to figure out what reward I was actually craving. And what I figured out pretty quickly was it had nothing to do with cookies. It had to do with socializing. Nowadays, what happens is at about 3:30 in the afternoon, I absentmindedly stand up, I look around the office, I see a friend, I'll walk over and we'll gossip for 10 minutes, and then I'll go back to my desk. The urge to go get a cookie has completely disappeared. The new behavior has become a habit, and I've lost about 12 pounds as a result. Studies have shown that if you can diagnose your habits, you can change them in whichever way you want. So what are the cues, routines, and rewards in your life? What habit do you want to change?
So interesting little study there about habits. There's a little poem here, Dennis Kimbrough. I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or your heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Half the things you do, you might as well turn over to me, and I will be able to do them quickly and correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great people, and alas, of all failures as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I am not a machine, though I work with all the precision of a machine, plus the intelligence of a human. You may run me for profit or run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? I am a habit. I love that. So, self discipline is most easily developed in areas of strength and passion. So, think about your own life, the things that you feel are God given strengths, God given talents, things that you have that are natural areas of passion. It's one of the things we love to see is people really drilling down on the areas they're great at and passionate about. I'm a huge fan of a trumpet player named Chris Botti. You guys have ever heard of him? I've gone to a ton of his concerts, and it's just this explosion of joy when he plays with all of his band. But Chris Botti is extremely passionate about playing the trumpet ever since he was a little kid. I don't even think he graduated from high school. And he ended up going and touring around. I think he toured even with Frank Sinatra. And there were a few other people that he followed and played with for years. But he takes his trumpet everywhere he goes. And when they ask him, what's the key to your success and how are you so good at what you're doing? He says the same thing all the time. He says, practice, 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 practice. So even under his passion, he knows how much discipline goes into what he does in his own passion and success. So are there areas in your life where you can say no to the good so that you can say yes to the best? This is a great question to ask because there's lots of good, but we're looking to say yes to the best things. Self-discipline and respect are connected. Think about the couple that's been married for 50 years when you're at that wedding that you look at and go, wow, a lot of respect. They went through a lot of years of discipline and choices and difficulties and trials. Think about when the winter or the summer Olympics comes around and you hop the television on, you see these amazing Olympian athletes and the amount of sacrifice and dedication and commitment and the poise of which they pull things off that are just unfettered. You and I go, wow, we just awe at them and respect what it is that they've accomplished. The person who didn't quit when everything was against them, Billy Graham, who stayed faithful to the end. Think about Jesus, who went all the way to the cross when everything was against him. And he said, is there another way? And he said, no. So we respect those types of people. Self-discipline makes consistency possible, and consistency compounds. So I have a mentor of mine that says, you've heard about compounding interest, but he said, what about compounding choices? There's this wonderful concept called the rule of 72, which calculates the approximate time over which an investment will actually double at a given rate of interest, which they call I. And so you take an example, let's say that somebody wants to have $1 million by retirement at the age of 65, based on a compounded average growth rate of 6%, a 25-year-old would need to save $6,462 a year to attain the goal. If you're a 40-year-old, on the other hand, you would need to save $18,227. That's almost 3 times just to attain the goal. So that time has a big factor, and think about the compounding effect of those choices, little by little, step by step, placehold by placehold. So consistency is a prerequisite to excellence. It provides security to others when you're consistent. They learn to trust you. It reinforces your vision and your values when you're consistent. And it compounds. It compounds over time. Developing the self-disciplined person within you, how do you do it? You avoid temptations. You pay now and you play later. That's the mentality you have to have. And you just get back on the wagon when you fall off. So in closing, discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness. So no matter what it is, we have to remember that part of being a leader is really becoming a person who is living a life of self-discipline.